Test number 1.
Working.
Test for Steve.
Working.
Test Matt.
Working.
Test public.
That's great.
Test Councilmember Grassi.
Working.
Test Councilmember Fleming.
That's great.
Test Councilmember Worthington.
Testing, testing,
That's working.
testing, testing. The Honorable
Who is
Figueroa.
that?
Hello? Am I here?
Test Mayor
Yes,
Pro Tem
yes,
Wood.
you are here.
Good evening. I'm Mayor Javier Figueroa, and I'm calling the regular meeting of the University Place City Council for Monday, August the 5th, 2024, to order. And with that, will the city clerk do the roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Boykin is excused. Councilmember Worthington.
Present.
Councilmember McCluskey.
I'm here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Grassi.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wood.
Here.
Mayor Figueroa.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And will Councilmember Worthington please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. Do you, Your Honor, please rise?
And may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
I second.
Is there any objection to approve the agenda? None seen. Motion passes unanimously. And for public comments, I'll make it easy. We're now in the public comment portion of the agenda. I don't see any public here presently, but do we have anybody online?
No one online, Mayor.
Okay, so we're now done with the public comments, and we'll move on to item number 6A through H, and that's the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion to approve.
Any objection to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And we're to item number 7, parking code amendment. And this is for a passage of an ordinance and staff report. Our city attorney, Matt Kaiser, and Kevin Brisky, our community and economic development director, will be doing the staff report. City Clerk, would you go and get his attention, please? Matt, can you start?
All right. Before council tonight for consideration and adoption is an ordinance related to traffic collection devices. This is a matter which council had the opportunity to discuss at length at its prior council meeting. I'm not going to necessarily belabor many of the same points. The ordinance that's in front of you tonight in your packet is unchanged from the version that you had before you at your prior meeting. Just to briefly recap for the benefit of council, this item together with the next item, which relate to the imposition or the fixing of fees associated with the collection devices, are complementary measures. This measure does three things. One, or the ordinance that's in front of you, this particular study or action item. One, it sets a fine for violation of essentially an overdue meter violation at a proposed amount of $25. Two, it sets an affirmative defense for certain violations related to healthcare needs. And three, it makes an appropriate housekeeping change to a separate provision of the municipal code, allowing for a flexible fee setting structure, which is the next item that we have on the agenda. With that, I have no other comments. Mr. Brisky, I don't know if you had any other comments.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. Kevin Brisky with the Community and Economic Development Department. I would like to just take a few minutes and just kind of go over the overall parking within the Village of Chambers Bay, and also kind of how we came about with the proposal for the parking meters. Starting off just kind of with the overview of the existing parking. Currently, at the Village of Chambers Bay, there's a parking garage, as many of you are aware of, a 3-level parking garage that has 800 total stalls in that. About 543 of those stalls are open public stalls available to anybody to park at any time for free. There's 5 entrances 5 vehicular entrances in and out of the parking garage. There's 4 public elevators up through the garage out to the street. And there's also a ramp and multiple stairways. Market Street out front, the main street running north-south, has 61 stalls, including 4 ADA stalls. Market Square, right around the square, there's 8 additional stalls. And Bridgeport back in Angle has 27 back in Angle stalls. The city was first approached back in 2019 from Verus, who is the developer the city's been working with, who developed the Whole Foods and the single-level commercial, about managing the parking on Market Street, as they were seeing difficulties with not only their existing tenants, but trying to sign up future leases. Of course, everybody knows what happened in 2020. Things changed for a while, and things were put on hold for that. More recently, Verus and multiple businesses have approached the city with the same issues with the parking out front, and asked the city to look into managing of the parking. Some of the issues concerning that was raised from Verus, they have a potential pad down on the end next to where Five Guys is going in and Orange Theory. There's an 11,000 square foot building there. There's a potential tenant that's looking in that space. It's a tenant that it's a large corporate tenant. When they fly in from out of state and take a look down there, there's never any parking in front of where their building's going to go now, and so they've brought up concerns with that before they would move forward with their lease, asking the city to look into managing the parking there. This includes Five Guys, which is going in there. They're under construction. However, before they signed their lease, they did talk to the city, and we had told them that we were looking into managing of the parking along Market Street. The issues that they were raised from the businesses and from the property owners is they see a lot of employees parking on Market Street for long periods of time. Now, I know many of the business owners, I talk to them and they tell their employees not to park there, but it's tough to handle all that, and so that is seen, that is happening. Also, there's people who live in the apartments. I think sometimes they have visitors who come and park for long times during the day out front, and sometimes I think maybe even some of the people living in the apartments park out front, even though they have adequate parking in the garage. There's other potential customers that are parking for extended periods of time, 2, 3, 4 hours out front. The city, when looking at the parking management, we did look at several options on managing the parking out there. One of them was just to enforce the time limits, put a time limit out there. We put signs up that we weren't really enforcing, so clearly people were kind of ignoring the signs. Looking into just managing, doing it with just these signs. The cost of that, you would need full-time enforcement to do that, which would cost well over $100,000 a year. As they'd have to be walking around to enforce the time, checking to see if someone's staying for over the allotted time, and potentially then only writing tickets. We also looked at a validation-based model, which is is a highly technology-based model. It's less convenient to the shoppers, as they have to go in and try to remember their license plates. Sometimes if they enter that in, it doesn't always work. Point Ruston does this to some success, but they also are completely privately owned down there. They recently changed their model to some QR code that I've heard there's been some difficulties with as well. It still takes full-time enforcement to manage that sort of system, as well as you have to have someone going around and checking license plate to see if they're validated or not. So the cost is even potentially much higher than $100,000. So then we looked at the meters. The nice part about meters is they tend to self-enforce, as people are more likely to put money in a meter when they see the meters out front. And also, you don't need a full-time enforcement out there managing it, as you can just have someone going through a couple times a day. The light's either red or green, and you write a warning, or you can write a ticket. We looked at meters instead of pay stations for convenience as well. Pay stations can be backed up with a line. If anybody's been to Tacoma, you go pay at a pay station, you get a little sticker, stick it on your window, and then probably who knows what you do with that when you leave. The meters are right at the stalls. The meters we got as well allow coin, credit card, or an app that we're using. So you can have 3 methods of payment. With taking that, the next step we took was to meet with the businesses. We met with 15 of the approximately 25 businesses to get feedback on the proposal. Drawing on their feedback, we developed the plan with the meters, and much of the discussion with the businesses was, what length of time that would be reasonable, what times during the day. The businesses kind of settled on 90 minutes, seemed to work for everybody kind of equally, would be a good amount of time. They did request some 15-minute stalls, so that would be unmetered, quick pickup and drop-off stalls. And they asked if we could add a couple more, which we did. So there's the 8 stalls around Market Square, that would be pickup and drop-off, and then 2 additional stalls along Market Street for a total of 10 15-minute stalls. That would be unmetered and free. They did also ask if we would not meter the 4 ADA stalls on Market Street, which we're not proposing to do as well. And the garage, the other thing they obviously wanted to know, garage is still free and open at all time, open to the public for extended periods of time, and the back-end angle on Bridgeport would remain free as well. The meters, the budget was approved for the purchase of the meters in a previous budget cycle. The meters, as if you've seen, we did install the meters last week, and so they are installed. They just have the socks over them, so they're not activated. Still in kind of a testing phase for those meters at this time. We don't have an exact date yet on when they would go live. So with that, the city was approached by business owners requesting management of the parking along Market Street to improve the parking turnover, which helps increase their business activity. The city looked into several options for managing of the parking and landed on the meters as the best, most economical and best solution. The city met with businesses to get feedback on the plan, and that's how we developed the times and lengths of times for that. And as I just stated, the meters are installed. That concludes my report.
Okay, Council, as always, opportunity to clarify what was presented. Please refrain from brainstorming about what else can be done or not done. This is primarily to clarify what the presentation on any point. Councilmember Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor Figueroa. Appreciate that. Let's see. There were a couple of questions I had. One was, Kevin, you had mentioned you met with the 15 business people. 15 out of 25, I think, is what my notes are saying. Of the 15, how many supported the use of meters?
When we met with the businesses, there was no 100% negative, don't do this. We did actually receive 8 emails of support of the meters. Most of the discussion all revolved around the rate at $1 an hour, the time frame of the 90 minutes, and then the time frame during the day which the meters would be active, which is 10 to 6.
Okay. And then the video that we saw last time that was produced, it's an educational video about the use of meters and some of the justification, but it's really meant for the public. Nonetheless, we had, I think, 3 business owners on that. Were they part of the emails or part of that meeting, or are they an additional? Or
They were an additional. They were at the meeting. However, we did not receive emails from them, but clearly in the video. So that would be in addition to the 8 we received emails.
So there's 11 there that you're saying strong affirmative and no one strongly objecting. In the motion that we had the last meeting to table, I made that motion. In that motion, I also, in the explanation of that motion, I mentioned that there was an opportunity to see if staff had any recommendations to deal with the urgent care provider that is there, to deal with the parking demands of the urgent care provider. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts about that?
We did reach back out. They were a part of the original meeting we had, but we did reach back out to them and meet with them last week. We met with the on-site manager, and then their district manager was on a conference call. They did still have some concerns about, if somebody was ill, trying to be able to get there or being able to pay for the meter, which I believe is one of the suggestions in the ordinance was to try to make some allowance for people in that sort of situation. I did also ask just the question, they said they receive about 100 patients a day, which is their second highest performing location out of 9 in the area. And I asked the question, where are they parking now? Because there's never a spot open in front of that section. And they weren't 100% sure. They feel sometimes people get dropped off. They did like the 15-minute stalls for drop-offs. And they kind of did say, well, yeah, if some more stalls were open, then that would probably be a good thing. The other question I had for them is, if they knew where their employees were parking, and they weren't sure where their employees were parking at that time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Those are my questions for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kevin, thank you for that report, and as always, you do a great job. I do want to dovetail on Councilmember Worthington's question. So of the 15 of the 25 businesses we looked at, that equals 60% of the businesses, which is a good sample. But of those 60%, how many of those said, yeah, we really want this?
We'll receive the 8 letters of support plus the 3 additional in the video. And then at the meeting, all of them felt comfortable with the proposal, all the rest of them who attended the meeting.
Okay. All right. So that's not bad. It's about 52%.
In the 25 businesses, I was also including the library, City Hall, and so forth. And we did receive a letter from the library indicating they had no objections and they would just wanted updates on when it was going to happen so they could inform their customers.
Okay. You also made a comment about, having a parking enforcement person out there just ensuring that people kept their cars moving was somewhat expensive when you looked at other models. In our proposed model before us, who's going to do the parking enforcement, and what's the estimated cost of that individual or individuals to do that?
Right
and,
now,
and I'm not looking at salaries. I'm just looking at budget-wise costs.
Right now, the plan is to incorporate it into the contract with Pierce Security, and we're in talks with them on that. They already have a security guard who walks regularly through the garage and does laps out on the street. So right now, we figure we can just incorporate into the current contract, as well as we do have city staff. We have a code enforcement officer who can randomly come through there and write warnings as well.
So would that be a no additional cost to the city in that amended contract you're looking at, or is that an additional cost?
It's to be determined at this point. Jax and Deb Sage out of Public Works is talking with them right now. They'd indicated at the start they could do it through their normal daily operations.
Okay. And would they have the park and enforcement authority to do that?
Under the way that the current municipal code is written, they would have the authority, if granted a limited commission, to do so.
Okay. And then my last question is, you said on the Bridgeport Way side, there's going to be no parking meters on the back end parking. So in the original proposal that the council looked at, did we not have those as parking metered stalls?
No, we did consider it. We looked at it and thought, would it be something that should be metered? And we did, staff at least determined, and talking with the businesses, there was no need to meter those at this time.
Okay.
Partly because they're used, but they're not heavily used. They're not the most convenient stalls, and it's good to have some cars parked out there. It kind of slows traffic down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question. Last time we discussed this, there was an estimated dollar value benefit for putting in these parking stalls due to rotation. Can you remind me what that number was that you were saying in
Yes.
time frame?
Yeah, so the parking stalls, and this comes from studies that were done and trainings that multiple staff did back at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. And they are estimated if the stalls turn over 10 times a day, they will produce $100,000 in sales to the businesses in the village of Chambers Bay. And at first I was like, what is, does that math make sense? And that means at every stop, someone would spend approximately $27.
Okay.
And if I think about that, if you average it out, it's probably a fair estimate. If you go to Mod Pizza with 2 people, you're going to spend that much. If you go to some of the other locations, you might spend more or a little less and so forth.
That was $100,000 over what time frame?
A year.
A year. Okay, thank
They
you.
turn over 10 times a day, $100,000 in sales a year to the businesses.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Just clarification, because I think I might have written a note down wrong in my staff briefing. But as of right now, we haven't secured Pierce Security to do this monitoring enforcement as part of our contract. That's still to be determined. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So as of right now, the only monitoring that we're secure on having for enforcement is our own court enforcement staff member.
It's current city personnel.
That's it.
Yes.
But we do not have the price or a secured contract yet of who will
Not
be
to
the
my
main enforcer.
I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but not
but-
to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'll just, would you remind the council, I know that prior to the staff ordering the meters, that we had study sessions. You know how many study sessions we had just to give you direction to order the meters, to say, okay, we're on board to get in having parking meters in our city or in the downtown here?
We had one last January, which I had the presentation here for sure, and I don't recall on the budget time frame if there was another one at that particular time.
Okay. At that time, you already had visited the businesses before you came to us to study that, right? Okay.
Correct.
And then you revisit them again as we went along?
Yes.
Okay, thank
And
you.
also with the, which I'm sorry I didn't mention this before, but we also talked about this proposal with the Economic Development Commission to get their feedback.
Okay, and what was their feedback, just for a reminder?
They just had questions about it, but they were fine with the proposal, and they understood that getting the parking turnover out on Market Street was of value.
Okay, thank you. With no other council member for clarification, we'll move on to public comment. And is there anybody online?
There's no one online, Mayor.
And I do see someone here from the public. Anybody here that, and I see she's shaking her head no, so we don't have anybody here presently to provide comment to this. And so we'll move on to council consideration and calling for a motion for the proposed council action.
Mayor, I move to pass an ordinance amending sections 10.15A.140 and 10.15A.190 of the University Place Municipal Code relative to collection devices.
I second that.
Okay, we have first and second, and now we're into discussion, comments, and et cetera. So I see Councilmember
McCluskey.
you missed one meeting, and no, just kidding.
Who are you?
I was on
Councilmember
vacation. I was having fun.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Well, as a former retailer, a turnover of parking in slots, especially prime slots in front of the door of your business, is golden. And I know when I was working at Sears before they left town. I had managed several departments there, and it was pounded into our head around the holiday season for that fourth quarter. Each trunk was worth $150,000 of turnover during that time frame. So that really resonated with me. And so my concern was going down our market square here and seeing all the parking that was pretty much stuck for hours at a time. The retailers, not surprising to me, would have a concern, or even future retailers coming in, because they do want, as Whole Foods puts a timestamp on their stamping, on their parking for that continual turnover for their revenue drivers. So if we're going to have a really healthy and vibrant retail area in our market square, I thought it was an essential component that we do have it metered. I'm glad we got at least 57-ish% of businesses. As we know, businesses turn over, sometimes quite rapidly at a blink of an eye. And new retailers will come in, and the first thing they'll look at is, how are the customers coming into my store? Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I'll make a comment. Oh, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay, I apologize.
Did you have your hand up?
It's a little slow.
Okay. So, Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for that slowness. Again, I just want to reiterate, I appreciate the work and the rework you've done, Kevin, to bring forth the information, and I really appreciate the comments from the dais, also from fellow council members. I agree that turnover of those parking spaces for businesses is exceptionally important for success and the vitality and the viability of the business, especially within our business district, and we want to continue to foster that as we continue to evolve as a city. I've given this a lot of thought and tried to relook at it from different perspectives. In the very beginning, I was not one of those council members that was on board for buying the parking meters in the first place, but I've tried to keep an open mind to that. I actually went out and I visited DuPont and Gig Harbor and Lakewood, Faircrest, and I even drove as far as Auburn last week just to look at their new downtown community that they have there with the parking garages, and looking at how they were mitigating parking on the streets, and none of those communities use parking meters. They use other methodologies to turn over parking, and it seems to be working in those communities. And I chose those because those are the communities we're always referencing as like communities to University Place. I got burned, like I said, shared with council once before as a former council member on putting parking meters into businesses. It almost killed that particular business district. And I just haven't seen anything to change my mind completely in terms of putting parking meters in as the sole solution to where we're going. So I hope that down the road I'm proven wrong. I want our community to continue to be vibrant. I want our community to continue to grow. The staff and the council here present and before have done a phenomenal job in bringing those businesses into this community, and we really want to keep those. But I'm going to reserve judgment at the present time, so I'm, in fairness to my fellow council members, I am not on board with passing this tonight. I'll probably be the lone council member, but that's okay. We do what's best for our city at the end of the day, and I support that. So with that said, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor Figueroa. Appreciate that. And thank you for the good information,
Good job.
Kevin Bursky and the rest, and appreciate Councilmember Fleming's perspective and comments, and they were thoughtful as always. I see it a different way, but that doesn't mean that you don't have good thoughts and value to
Likewise.
that. Yeah. The way I see it is that I think this does help our business community. I do hear the business community members talking about vocalizing their support in emails and positive messaging during the meetings. I see a tenant that is ready to, very much ready. I don't know if this is the sole issue that keeps them from signing, but it's one of the issues, if not the sole issue, that keeps them from signing, and I'm interested in having them come and have their corporate presence here in our community. And as I understand it, actually continuing to have it in our community. All of that talks to me about it being a business issue. And I have seen this before years ago as a business person in Spokane, where meters were a useful tool to cause churn in the high traffic areas in terms of high foot traffic and retail areas. I had a restaurant in downtown, had 2 restaurants in downtown Spokane over time, and this was a tool that was working for that. And it kept my employees from parking there, and that was probably a good thing in the long run, and they figured out where they could park. Any case, I think it's a business-friendly thing to do. I want to take that kind of action. I think it's a good step for us. We have tried educational programs. We have tried soft enforcement. We've tried a number of things, but we haven't done is parking meters. And we actually have them in hand. We have a program in place. We should move forward with this, and I'm ready to vote yes when the opportunity comes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as you know, I've been reluctant on this all along. And the primary reason is because I know personally my behavior of where I shop is affected by whether or not there's metered parking or whether or not I have to pay for parking, I guess would be the best way to put it. I will go places if there's not alternatives, but it just bugs me every time. But having said that, you've made a very good case as to how we're going to turn our parking over and why we're using parking meters. I really appreciate your discussion today for doing that. And as you pointed out, at least a significant, I'll say a majority of the businesses support it, and certainly none are complaining it yet. And it does seem to be helping our development. So for that reason, I'm going to support this right now. But I am very much looking forward to when we revisit this in a year as originally agreed upon to see if our assumptions that we're making now actually prove true, so that we can, validate whether this is working or not the way we intended. So thank you.
Okay. You do? Okay. Councilmember Grassi?
I don't like to be left out. Thank you, Mayor. But I would say thank you so much, Kevin, for your report and hard work on that. I had an interesting conversation with new friends that I met at our concerts in the square last Wednesday, and they live here, and they actually wanted to talk to me about the parking meters, and they were applauding the decision to move forward with them because, as they described themselves, they get to watch from their perch every day and see the same employees take up the same spots all day long. And they moved from a lovely community, have lived here for 3 years and love it, and watch every week online. So hopefully they're watching now. But I think it's a necessary, unpleasant event. As a former business owner with parking meters downtown on Pacific Avenue, it did give us cause for alarm as business owners, and so I understand that. And so I'm happy to hear that our business owners are on board. I'm with them, and I think that this is going to help them get the turnover that they need. But I do, I understand my colleagues' concerns. Councilmember Fleming, I hear that as well. It might be a necessary evil that I hope we can produce what it hopes to do. So thank you for all your hard work. And I'm confident this is going to be an economic booster for our town center. So thank you.
No comments? Okay. We've been very good as a council to listen to our constituents, to our commissions. That's why we ask them. They're advisory commissions. We didn't do a resolution with directive to give us a recommendation, but certainly were provided a opportunity to provide comment through through staff, knowing that they did not have any, not one negative response not to do this is a signal for me. Having the businesses, every one of them were communicated with and touched at various times, and my understanding there was not one that said no, not one showed up that said this is a disaster, don't do it. That tells me quite a bit, that the ones that are actually paying the bill, we're not paying the bill, they are. They're paying the rent. They're the ones that marketing, trying to get their customers to the door. I put a lot of weight on those businesses. I put weight on our commissioners. And so, and I do put weight on on our city staff, but mostly our constituents, our businesses and commission. We've had the parking meters up with a cover, I think for how long, Kevin? A week, 2 weeks? About a week?
Yes, about a week. I think
In
it was
this,
last Tuesday.
in this business, been summer, people are out. We've even had a couple of concerts, or at least one. I think that with those meters going up, it was very, very obvious that if I know human factor, that they would have noticed and would have said something. I didn't hear one council member said, I've had all kinds of people approach me about those meters. They're not here tonight saying, I saw those meters out there and I saw that you're planning something here. I'm not hearing emails that I normally get saying, what are you doing about meters? That, in my experience, 14 years on this council, that says a lot, puts weight into, are we doing the right thing or not? And I do believe that in the makeup that we have here, there's a lot of services that do not create sales tax, as you well know. Membership or medical or otherwise that do not pay sales tax. And so I do know, being around since this was put together, and I do come here a lot, that I see a lot of people that do park out there for a very long time is a lot of those businesses that stay there, because a lot of those are half an hour type of appointments. They're not people that go and grab something to eat and leave, or eat and half an hour they're out of here. But a lot of the parking is utilized by either employees, which I thought they're going to be paying on the hour. That'll take care of that. And businesses that don't do sales tax that provide for 1 hour appointments. And that's the cycling that has to be complete to get those that actually depend on people coming in and picking up or eating and moving on. People that are doing quick, ordering, sometimes they order and they can pick up. Sometimes they don't. But they do go in, order it, and they leave. I really believe that that's most of those people would have to go down to either they leave or go to the parking lot. People that are looking for convenience are not going to go to the garage. And that's the kind of businesses here that we have and will continue to have. As you see, we have a couple more restaurants potentially going in. Those are the businesses that really need to have those spots protected to help their business. So I think there's some common sense here that we have to look at on behalf of the businesses, and especially those that depend on those spaces, and open it up as soon as possible so they can have the turnaround. As we all know, convenience. Our society is all about convenience. Convenience about everything possible, and this what this parking meters do. So I really think that this has been thought out, and we've had ample opportunity to observe what would happen with the conversations. We didn't have one business come and before us and testify against it. So I think that, and there's one more point I wanted to make, and that is, this is new. As we all know, it took us a lot to come to this point, and I think it's for the better, but we do know that it is new. There's, as everything, there's nothing perfect. We always have, what we do here is fluid at all times. 1 year from now, we hear, we observe, we get presented with new information. We'll hear it, and we have the ability to make that correction. I don't believe it's going to be taking out the meters, but certainly make some corrections that will be helpful. We have that opportunity to do so at any time in the future. So it's not like we're stuck with this ordinance or anything else. So I'm in favor of this. So with that, any other comments? None? We'll go to a vote. Will the city clerk do the roll call?
Okay, Mayor. Councilmember Worthington,
Aye.
Councilmember McCluskey,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Nay.
Councilmember Grassi,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wood,
Aye.
Mayor Figueroa.
Aye.
Mayor, vote resolved, 5 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to item number 8, fee schedule for parking meters for an adoption of a resolution. And we have our city attorney and community economic development director presenting.
Yeah, this is good evening again. This is a companion measure to the action which council just took, which actually sets the rate at the meters. I think as council is aware from the prior discussions, it would be a variable pricing model. Despite the thickness of this item in the packet, there's only one significant change, which is on the very last page. But I'm going to ask you for another change here in a second. And that one page that you're talking about in there reflects a range of pricing between 25 cents per hour and $5 per hour, with the actual rate being has posted. Obviously, with anything the city does in which we charge a rate, it's got to be in the fee schedule. There is one housekeeping amendment that I am asking the council for, which I caught as I was sitting here. If you take a look at Section 2 of the resolution, when this matter was continued from your last meeting, it had an effective date anticipating passage. I would ask council that in its consideration, if council were to take this up, that Section 2 be amended for an effective date of August 13th of 2024, which is next week Tuesday. I should have caught that before the packet went live. I didn't. I apologize. With that concludes my remarks. I don't know if Kevin has anything to add.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. I'll start real quick with clarification. On that amendment, Mayor Pro Tem, do you need to have him write you out for the motion in the future?
Yes, talk me through exactly what this should
I'll do better. I prefer for you to write it out and pass it on.
I can
to
write
us.
it out if Mayor Pro Tem can read my handwriting.
Okay.
I'll give it my best.
Please.
Go for it.
Thank you. That being said, any clarifying questions for Kevin? I don't see any, and I don't have any myself, so we'll move on to a motion. I'm calling for a motion, and I'll wait for the amendment to come up.
Public comment.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. So the next, before we do that, we have public comment. And again, before I go through all the directions, is a member in the public member here that would like to comment? Okay. Is there anybody online?
There's no one online, Mayor.
There is?
No one.
No one online. Okay, so there's no one online or anybody here present, so I won't go through the directions for public comment. And so public comment section is closed. And we will move on to a call for a motion, and we'll get the amendment up here. Okay, so calling for a motion.
All right, Mayor, so I move to adopt a resolution amending the city's fee schedule. And what we'll do is after this gets seconded, then we'll move on to the rest.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and we'll move on to discussion and comments or any amendments.
Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion. I'd like to move to amend Section 2 of the resolution to change the effective date to August 13th, 2024.
Second.
And is there any discussion just on the amendment? Comments? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote, and all in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Okay, we have one nay. Can that be recorded, please? And with that, it passes. 5-1, right?
Correct.
But that's just the amendment.
Yeah, I mean, for the amendment, right. So we'll move on to the, main motion and discussion.
I
No?
have one.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wood.
Yes, just a quick question on the variable rate. Can you tell me a little bit more about the variable rate and why it's variable and who's going to set the rate and when or why? A little bit more behind that.
Yes, the current rate will be set at $1 an hour, 90-minute max, so $1.50 for the whole time. You can put in as little as a quarter. The variable rate is put in there in case it needs to be adjusted in the future, and the adjustment would be made by the Director of Public Works after evaluating what's happening out there. Let's say nobody's parking out there, then the dollar is too high, and you would need to lower it to 50 cents. If the stalls are always full at $1 an hour, you might need to adjust it higher to $1.50. This was to allow some flexibility and not have to come and revisit it with council in the future. However, as staff's discussions, we anticipate this rate working for the foreseeable future at $1 an hour.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to, excuse me a second, a motion, for a, let's see if I get this right, a vote with the motion and as amended. And just to be clear, as amended, if you repeat the amendment to the main motion that
Mayor?
got approved.
Yes. The motion was to amend Section 2 of the resolution to change the effective date to August 13th, 2024. And the original motion was, sorry, I have to go back here, just to adopt a resolution amending the city's fee schedule.
Okay, and we'll have the city clerk go for the vote.
Councilmember Worthington,
Aye.
Councilmember McCluskey,
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming,
Nay.
Councilmember Grassi,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wood,
Aye.
Mayor Figueroa.
Aye.
Mayor, vote results, 5 ayes, 1 nays.
Okay. And we'll move on to item number 9, city manager and council comments reports. And if I can remind, before we move forward on this, is that which council has approved these agendas. And just as a reminder that we allot 20 minutes for this item, which includes the city manager's reports. So be conscious, we have 6, sometimes we have 7, looking at, if everybody commented, that's less than 3 minutes apiece, or much less with the city manager. So some of this have gone quite lengthily, and I'm asking your help in keeping that in summaries. And if you have a long report, maybe we as a council can discuss, can that be submitted to the council members in writing or through an email, or we changed how we went to 10 minutes, and then I moved it to given 15 minutes, and now I'm at 20 minutes. Sometimes this has gone on to 30 minutes, and so which takes time out of our study sessions. So just keep conscious, otherwise we'll have to really discuss these points in our with the council later on in the future. So with that, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, council received an email last week from Public Safety Director Jennifer Hales that tomorrow is National Night Out. The meetup time at our police station downstairs is at 4:30. Some of these neighborhood barbecues start at 5, so we're going to be launching some vehicles out of there pretty quick. There's going to be 6 caravans. You'll be assigned to one of those police fire caravans. And there will be, Lyndon and Amanda will have some handouts for you to take with you. Also on Wednesday, then the following night on Wednesday is another concert of Music on the Music on the Square series. It's every Wednesday night through end of August. And then also on Thursday, there's a concert out at the Current Orchard from 6:30 to 8 p.m. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll start with Let's just go to the left over here. Councilmember McCluskey.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Well, as the mayor knows, I'm part of the Unified Regional Approach for Homelessness. It's a collection of elected officials that are coming together and vetting for the county a consultant. It's a similar approach to SHAPE on how they're looking at it, and basically the consultant is there to get county buy-in of all the municipalities, cities, and towns, so they can come together and work collectively on the issue of homelessness. Well, through many hours, we're down to 2 finalists, and as of today, it's a tie. So we can't really make a decision. So they're going for a second round of questioning for clarification. And so hopefully by the next time I report, which would be in September, we'd have somebody going forward. So the consultant would look at the landscape, figure out how to collaboratively approach a consensus with all the bodies, and then creating a pathway forward. And in these 2 particular cases, they'll be able to carry the baton into the technical portion of that. It's with some of the ARPA funds that the county has received that has creating a catalyst and a way to pay for the consultant for that approach. So more to come on that. And then mid-July, Dance Theater Northwest did their teddy bear picnic. Councilmember Grassi was here manning the booth. I was one of the greeters, so I got to count the people coming in. And at the end, I got to hand them their little teddy bear that they were going to adopt. It was very cute, well attended, and they're looking forward to putting it on again next year. I think next year will be their 14th year doing this, do you think? Something like that? Yeah. And then last Saturday, I was at Movie in the Park. The movie was Finding Nemo, and it was beautiful. When the sun went down and the colorful graphics of the movie, it was spectacular. And there was a half a dozen adults just by themselves coming to enjoy the movie, because they enjoy this venue every year. And some of them said, I can't get enough of the movie Finding Nemo. So they were there. There was bouncy houses. The food trucks were out there. Bliss Ice Cream was out there. And so I welcomed everybody and told about the little history of how it all came to be in a roundabout way celebrating our city's 29th anniversary. And so next year will be 30th council, so we got to do something extra special for that one. So that was a well-attended event, and people were all smiles and enjoying it. It was an extra warm summer evening, too. Sleeveless shirts the whole duration, which is unusual. And then the other event I attended in the city was the Nature School in UP. Everyone received a flyer, and so I had my grandson, and I thought, well, it's free, it's a Friday evening, I'm going to take him down there. And it was well attended as well. There was a ton of people there. They gave out free food, free drinks, free little snow cones, pizzas, and they had about 8 different activity centers. McDevitt's Farm was there with their petting zoo, and all smiles, face painting, so it was a wonderful time there for those couple hours. And that little neighborhood there got inundated with cars and little peeps going, ready to have fun. I also attended a Pierce County committee. It was the Community Development and Environmental Services. And they're trying to spend more ARPA funds of a tune, I think, of about a couple $1 million. And what they're trying to do is to build small houses for homeless. Pretty much the same idea as what we saw at the AWC conference in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. It'll be enough for about 60 homeless people to come. and they're looking at placing it somewhere in Spanaway. So it passed the committee and going to the county council by a vote of 3-2. So hopefully there'll be, I'm tracking this one because, I'm very interested in that model, especially the small homes concept, because it has a lot of success rate. And it's well managed, and it also is a place where people can come and get their emergent needs met rather quickly, rather than going through the emergency ER routes and tracking it back that way, which can at times be pretty arduous and confusing. So it's another facet for Pierce County to explore. It was mentioned in the meeting that Tacoma and Lakewood and Lacey has these pocket small homes for homelessness, and those models are doing really well. But Pierce County at large doesn't really have any, and so this would be the first pilot program to test it. It will be done on the continuum of 180 days at the will of the Pierce County Administrator for Public Services. So that's exciting to see how that model rolls out in Pierce County. If it does, hopefully it does. Thank you. I'll end my report then.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. First, I had the honor of attending the grand opening or the ribbon cutting for Pizza Pizzazz on the 24th of July. I will say they have great pizza and a really good story about basically achieving the American dream. I mean, this was a young family who moved here 6 years ago, started out working as like dishwashers and progressed through cooks, and now this is their second store they own. And they did it through really just hard work, and I'm just impressed and proud of that they're members of our community. On the 27th of July, I went out to the Twisted Cider 5K, and on a very last minute whim, I decided I would actually run it. I may regret that later, but no. But I was interested to hear as people were crossing the finish line, they would say their names and then where they were from. And we're bringing people in from all over Western Washington, north of Seattle, down to Vancouver, every community in our area, and of course, some folks from UP as well. But it's, I think we need to work with this to help. This is a great way to sell our community, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because so many people come here that would otherwise never come here. And I think it's a brilliant way to get folks here and to just talk about UP. And then finally, I'm looking forward to National Night Out tomorrow night. Should be fun. Thank you.
Councilmember Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple different things. Try and make this quick for everybody. I did chair the RCC meeting that happened last Wednesday. We're starting work on the bylaw process. We've started going through those. It's not quite as exciting as the interlocal agreement we spent 3 years doing, but we're trying to get there. But we are making some progress with it, and probably pretty quick, I hope. And there are some changes to the RCC staff. I mentioned that not everyone knows Sue, but some of us here served with Sue, because each person of my Mayor Figueroa served, Councilmember Fleming served on the RCC, and Sue had been with the agency, I think, for 27 years. Anyhow, Sue retired. Just wanted to let you all know. And we are very happy to have had her work and wish her the best in her retirement years. But the RCC rolls on and is doing fine. I also had a chance to attend Pearl Django and enjoyed that very much, and saw several fellow council members there, which was great, and enjoyed the music very much. Great band, just a real regular group, regular feature at one of our jazz venues in Seattle. I was going to mention I did some volunteer work with the current apple orchard. Orchard's looking great. Great place for a fun run. And Corey's the gentleman who does calls out the names when people come by, and he's amazing. Anyhow, he brings a lot of. Yeah.
He retired.
Oh, did Corey retire?
Yeah.
Gosh, I didn't go this year. But it is great we have a venue that, or an opportunity to bring people in. The orchard's looking good, and that's great to see as well. With that, I think I'll just thank you, and I look forward to hearing what else council's been up to.
Councilmember Fleming?
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be extremely brief tonight. First and foremost, to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, I'm looking forward to the National Night Out tomorrow. I think that's going to be an awesome turnout, and it's a great community event, not only within the city, but in the individual neighborhoods. Short of that, I know there's lots going on, but I will hold comments tonight, and I've got nothing more to add. I'll keep it short so we are within your timeline.
Our timeline. We approved the agenda together. Councilmember Grassi.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say a thank you to everyone that's come out to our community events and to our staff that's been making so much happen, and to the volunteers that make things like that fun Friday night for kids happen in our community. So many things have been happening in our city for kids, for family, whether it's the teddy bear picnic, which, yes, I served at, or concerts in the park, concerts in the square, but just so many different vibrant things. And I really do want to encourage our community members that are watching, this is how you meet your neighbors, and this is how you make connections. And when you make connections, your community is safer and it's better. And so summer's still here. We have more concerts to enjoy in the orchard and in the square. So I just want to encourage those that are watching to get out and enjoy our neighbors, meet new people. Congratulations to Pizza Pizzazz. I was there as well. Great, I agree. Mayor Pro Tem's comments about their story is just incredible and commendable. I'm honored to have them expand into our community. The Twisted Cider one was excellent. I did not run, but I was there at the finish line supporting and watching those kiddos as well. That was a great time. So our community is so vibrant. I think just summer is a wonderful time to show it off, and I just want to thank everyone that makes everything happen possible. Also, Melanie Kirkstoffer made sure to remind me she has a ballet happening in the atrium, I believe, next Thursday at 7. I believe is it next Thursday? No? Someone correct me, but it's happening. She's doing a ballet in our atrium here for free for families. And National Night Out, looking forward to it, always a favorite. Also, tomorrow is voting day. So I just want to remind everyone, if you're in University Place, easy way to drop off your ballot, make your voice heard, and vote. People have given their lives for this honor, and we should all take the opportunity. So thank you. That's all I have.
Just a couple of comments. And the city clerk may be able to help me. There's no council meeting for those that maybe just show up and love to see us here once in a while. Our third Monday meeting, which is 2 weeks from now, we will not have a council meeting. What date is that?
August 19th.
August 19th, we will not have a council meeting for those that are listening. And would that be on the website by chance?
It will be up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And so the next one is on the apple cider. I have to tell you that it has increased every year. And even this last time, they told me something like around, a little bit over 100 people increased. So they had 525? 525 registered. And that's not counting all the supporters that came in and supported the Ray's family and friends. So a big crowd. They expect to have more along the way. And I think that Mayor Pro Tem Wood is correct that we have positive consequences. We have to think about what we do now that this is becoming the race to be at least for 5K. I think there's a lot to take advantage of. I'm not sure what that is, but certainly we may want to maybe bring that up, maybe at a retreat, something like that, but certainly want to take advantage. So I also attended the ribbon cutting for the Pizza Piazza. Is that pronounced right? Pizza Pizzazz. And with Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Grassi. And I have to tell you, this is along over 56 and Cirque, tucked away in the corner, but it was excellent. Really, homemade sauce, everything is their recipe. It's not, they go pick their own vegetables, things like that. So very fresh. And I have to say, I'm not a big pizza guy, but when I do eat it, I want it to be, this is the pizza I would eat. And it was a great story to see folks that work hard and succeed. I did ask them why University Place and why in the corner out there, if you know where they're at. And it was interesting that, and they own two brands. This one, they have another brand, I forget the name. So they own more than 2 stores. Yeah, I think they own like 5. And this is just young people. They said for this location, it was because most of it is to go. It's not a restaurant. There's no sit-in, so it's all to go. And it provides them a location that they can attract UP, Lakewood, Fircrest, Tacoma, and it's easy to get because of the arterials, Orchard, CERT, 56th Street, things like that. So they really were excited to be at that location because it affords them to capture a lot of people that are just looking for that, and it's easy to get to them. So anyway, with that, we'll end the council comments and reports, and we'll move on to a study session. And item number 10 in the first study session is vehicle license fee, which used to be AKA Transportation Benefit District. In the future, we will not be using that name, so we can you won't see that anymore. So it is a vehicle license fee, and just for FYI, I did ask, because this is for the tab, the licensed vehicle tab, and I did ask if we could use that name, put that word in there, and it doesn't look like, because that was the actual official name that the state gave it, was the vehicle license fee. We can't add tab to it. So with that, this is the second study for adoption of a resolution. So I see Eric.
Eric's online, and I will introduce the slides, and then Eric jump in.
Okay, so it's your show.
So we're going to produce a little slide show for you. This is, as the mayor pointed out, this is the second study session. Last month, council met and had good discussion about this. You heard from staff. I won't repeat everything that was in that initial study session last month, but I just want to hit some highlights and start off by following up on the key questions that council asked, and there were 3 of them. The first is, council asked what effect on service, what the effect would be on city services if we just maintained the existing $10 vehicle license fee. And I'll answer all those as we go through, hopefully answer those. The second question was, are there options to balance the street fund without increasing the vehicle license fee? For instance, other taxes, reducing expenses, using one-time money. And the third question the council asked was, can this city's resolution, because this would be a resolution to increase the fee or to change the fee, can this city's resolution of this issue be postponed? So we'll get to all those. A little bit of background, not a whole lot, but it's worth just reviewing some key points. Regarding the vehicle license fee, which has been in place since 2013, when the council originally adopted the Transportation Benefit District and adopted a $20 annual vehicle license fee, and then in 2018 increased it to $35, and then in 2020 reduced it back to $10. So that's enough history on that. So how are the funds used? And each $10 generates approximately $250,000 a year. I know this is repetitive, but it's worth going over it again. Secondly, staff uses the vehicle license fee revenues to fund street preservation on arterials so that we can be in position to pursue grants. And what's interesting is that the grant funding agencies, the federal agencies where we solicit grants from, require that you maintain your street pavements to a certain level. If you don't qualify. You have to check the box. And I want to say the pavement, you have to maintain it at or above a pavement rating of 60. Don't quote me on that, but well, I heard today because my question was, okay, what is the pavement rating? The pavement rating goes from 0 to 100. 0 means that it's basically gravel or dirt. There's no pavement left. 100 would be a brand new overlaid road. So 60% is not a good grade in school, and it's not a good grade out on the streets. It's just passing, right? It's just it's not a failing grade, but it's not good. So 60% is I guess that would be a D in school, wouldn't it? Equivalent on a letter grade. So we use through our staff, which are street maintenance workers, and the equipment and the materials they use, they seal cracks in the road, they fix potholes, and they do other maintenance that preserves those pavements so that they don't deteriorate below that level of 60, because you do have to check a box on this grant application, that's what that means. So that's what that enhancing grant opportunities is, just fancy words for basically maintain your pavements and don't let it fall below a certain rating. Then the third item is we use these funds to maintain and preserve neighborhood streets. And of course, you all know, because you approve the bid each year, the chip seal program that we've been doing for 15, 20 years or so. It's probably since we started chip sealing. We do about 8 miles a year of chip sealing. We can get a lot of mileage, no pun intended, out of chip seal, as opposed to overlays. Chip sealing is about 1/5 the cost of an overlay, and actually it's even less than that. But if you include a slurry seal on top of that, it's about 1/5. The fourth item on the use of funds is that you see there is the deficit that we have in the street fund is approximately $785,000 at the existing $10 license fee, and I think you've seen the forecast. I won't put it up on the screen. It'd be too small to read anyway. But if you extend that out over the 20 years horizon, it ends up being a $15.7 million total deficit in the street fund. So it grows. It never decreases. It only grows at the current rate. Now, on to the next slide, the status quo. I kind of referenced that earlier, but next slide, please. There we go. All right. What happens if you keep this at $10? Well, we won't have the resources to do regular maintenance, the crack sealing, the fog sealing, the chip seal. So both arterials will suffer, as well as in our potential grant opportunities. We don't do much capital work at all on arterial streets unless we get a grant for it. So we need to be able to preserve that ability to get grants. And more importantly, in the neighborhoods, the only treatment of neighborhood streets is done through this chip sealing program. So if we don't have that at the $10 level, we simply can't continue that. That 8 miles of chip sealing is going to suffer. I mentioned arterials before. The residential streets also are on the slide there, item number 3. Those don't qualify for grants. Only arterial streets do. You can't get a grant for a residential street. There just isn't enough traffic volume to do so. And then finally, the cost of a roadway rebuild is prohibitively expensive. It depending on the street, you could be looking. You could be $1 million a mile. It depends. Each street is different. Depends on the width. Depends on what's there. But it can be very expensive to rebuild an arterial street. And a sort of local street is also expensive, obviously less, but it's still more expensive than it is to just do regular maintenance and keep it at a certain level of pavement rating. So, council wanted to know, are there options other than raising the vehicle license fee from $10 back to $40? So we want to go over that now. It's in the memo, but I wanted to just cut to the chase, just bring this back to a few items. There's a few ways of potentially dealing with this if you didn't want to raise the fee. We could cut expenses, not an ideal scenario, but you could you could cut expenses by deleting things like right-of-way, watering, and landscaping maintenance. You could cut street lighting, and I'm looking at my notes here, and we could, as far as the options are concerned, if you, for instance, right-of-way watering, if you eliminated that, that's $104,000, give or take. If you eliminated street lighting, there's $120,000 in electricity and $290,000 that we spend on repairs and installations every year. So you could eliminate about $560,000, but it would be noticeable. So it could be done, but it would not be without some pain. Obviously, the option for vehicle license fee is what is the second item. That's already known. A third item is the sales tax and utility tax. Now, there's a 0.1% sales tax that could be instituted by council, and I'm looking at my notes here, and I may call on my subject matter expert, Eric Faison, to describe this, but just a little bit of background. In the memorandum in 2022, the state legislature added the option of a 0.3% sales tax for up to 10 years and authorized city councils throughout the state to be able to impose 0.1% of that amount by majority vote, with remaining require voter approval. So for each 0.1%, you can raise $375,000. It gets you part way there, as I mentioned before. We're at a deficit of $785,000. So none of these by themselves would correct that deficit. So let me just stop there on that sales and utility tax and see if Eric has anything to add to that. So, if it comes online.
I'm here, Steve,
Okay.
and good evening, Council. I don't have anything to add to that, other than that sales tax is only good for 10 years, and after that period of time, I believe it has to go to voters. So it doesn't go the entire period of time.
Okay, so again, $375,000 is that option, as Eric just mentioned. It's only available for 10 years.
Mr. Stagg, real
Yes.
quick before you move
Yes,
on, can you answer a couple questions before we move on?
We can. Yes,
Okay,
that's a good question.
Councilmember Worthington?
Thank you. I'll make this very quick. Is that sales tax considered general fund, or is it some sort of specific fund? So the 1/10, 1%, is that a general fund
It
revenue?
would be general fund,
Thank you.
correct. And
Okay, go ahead.
all right, so, and then there's one-time money listed as the last option. Council's very familiar with that. It's been used in a limited way to hire an investigator for 10 years. It was $1.2 million or so that was done. It's normally, ongoing expenses such as street maintenance is paid by ongoing revenues, not one-time monies. But as council has in the past, in certain cases, well, in one case, in the case of public safety, decided to place $1.2 million in the public safety fund, transferred from the general fund to the public safety fund to fund an investigator for 10 years. So that was done. And that's why it's listed there. Okay, so the next and last slide, I told you this was going to be brief, and then we can get into any council discussion and debate on this one. So the next steps, slide, please. there's a time delay. Sorry, Council. There we go. We have, as far as the timing is concerned, you're not under a certain timeline to do this. You're aware that we have an ongoing deficit, but we have, I believe that the street fund runs into an issue in 20, and I'm looking for my notes here.
2030.
The fund runs.
It's
okay, 2030.
2027, if you can hear me.
Oh, okay.
And just one point of clarification, real quick. That sales tax is technically general fund, but it has to be used for transportation related stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a TBD sales tax.
So, Eric, I'm glad you mentioned. So our fund is depleted. The street fund is depleted, as Eric said, in 2027.
And I'm sorry,
2030.
I'm mixing up a few things. I believe it's 2030, actually.
Okay.
I'd have to double check.
That concurs with my note here, Eric. So thank you. So we're good. So just correction: the fund is depleted in 2030. So now staff is preparing. I've asked staff to prepare their department budgets. Currently, I'm reviewing this month, all these budgets, and then we'll be presented to council in the fall. And the council will then get to adopt the biennial budget for 25-26 in November. So how does this fee relate to the budget? The fee, this vehicle license fee, the council's decision on the vehicle license fee, it's not required for the biennial budget that we're currently preparing, that we're going to present to you for adoption. We are giving you, trying to give you a head start so that you can consider the options as you're going to discuss tonight, and then this would inform staff as the direction we put together for future figuring out the street fund revenues and expenses in future years. So with that, I don't have anything else to present, as you can see here. And I'm sorry, and I'm going to point to my SME here if I left anything out of the presentation.
You did not.
Okay. So, all right. So, council, Mayor, I'm going to turn it back to you for council discussion. Any questions? And we're here to support your debate or discussion tonight.
Okay, council. Before we go into discussion, I'd like to start with clarification to staff to see what is it that we want to hear more, or to clarify what the presentation, anything to help us with our discussion on our part. And I'll start with that, and that is, I got somewhat not confused, but I was trying to link what you said about and Eric said about 2030 and the funds, and how does that link with the street funds, where we have 785,000 deficit every year, right. Grows to $1 million by 2029. So how does that deficit and the fund that you mentioned for 2030, where it depletes, link that up again for me? And Eric can do it.
I'm going to ask Eric to respond to that question, Mayor.
So long and short is that we collected more money than we spent and developed a reserve balance. And we've been spending down that balance. And so while there is currently a deficit, you're spending money that you have in that fund, and that will run out by 2030.
Okay, so let me, just to make sure I understand this, we have enough in the fund to erase the $785,000 per year deficit until 2030. So we don't have a deficit because we have reserves, for better words, in this fund that actually pays for the cost of this type of maintenance all the way to 2030. Is that what I understand?
That is correct.
Okay.
The caveat I would make is that if you wait till 2030, then you don't have the benefit of using that deficit over a longer period of time. So I guess, I hope I'm explaining this correctly. So it won't be $785,000 a year necessarily if you wait until 2030, because you would have a shorter time period and not the benefit of using that money to help with that period.
So if we have this money that takes care of that deficit until then, I understand what you just said, but couldn't we start this license fee a much later date? We can start it in 2030 when it actually, or 2029, so we can start receiving money and be ready for the deficit in 2030 so that we're not taxing our citizens any sooner than it has to?
Let me take a moment and see if I can run the number for you. Since this is a study session, I could actually try to run the number for you to see if I can figure out what that would look like in that time period.
Okay. So while you do that, maybe we can have other council members that ask and clarification questions to Mr. Sugg that may be able to answer it. So I'll leave it to anybody else. Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for asking those questions because I think they are pertinent to the conversation that we're having, and I think it brings clarity to the whole conversation. Because I did have some questions with Steve when you were saying that, we have this ongoing deficit. I think to the mayor's point, we don't until we get there, and then we start that deficit.
We have an annual deficit, but not a total absolute deficit in the fund. So we still have a positive balance, an ending fund balance
Correct.
in the fund. But we have an ongoing deficit that's going to yield a negative ending fund balance, which is impossible. It'll go to zero, and then there'll be nothing there.
Mm-hmm. So, and thank you for that presentation and looking at those three key points that we had raised previously. One of the things that I had mentioned previously was asking for that opportunity to meet with staff to just think outside the box just a little bit to see, are there really, other alternatives, and if they're not, so be it at that point. But that didn't happen for whatever reasons. But to the credit of AWC, where we all had that opportunity to go and get educated earlier this summer, I was digging out my notes, and one of the things I came across was a class that I had attended there with regards to where they were teaching about where cities can find other opportunities for raising funds to cover needed resources or needed services to the community. And one of the things that had been put out on the table there was addressing the issue of absentee landlords. And some cities now are adopting these either fees or taxes for absentee landlords within their communities. And what they're doing with that, or what they have seen is, to lay the groundwork for council here, is investors come in and they buy up large quantities of housing within communities, but because they're not part of that community, they raise the rents, they collect the money, they have the benefits, but don't really put a lot back into the community. So what cities are choosing to do now is to come up with these additional fees or taxes for absentee landlords, and by raising money, they're able to do two things with it. One is to provide additional services and resources to their communities, but they're also learning that by doing that, they have reduced the number of absentee landlords, which is in turn reducing the cost of housing, which is now creating some affordable housing within those communities. So, my question to us is, as we're looking for additional revenues and sources for revenues to service our community, have we looked at models like that or looked at what other cities are doing that are creative, that allow them to meet maybe one or two or three of their community goals or concerns, and then pull those revenues without having to go down the pathway like this? Did we look at anything else like that, Steve, as we looked at other alternatives?
We looked at several options, but that was not one of them. We looked at B&O tax, we looked at sales tax, we looked at utility tax, we looked at traditional standard revenue sources that have predictability and you can calculate, with a fair degree of precision how much you're going to receive. But we didn't look at a more creative revenue option than those three or four.
I would be interested, and I would, this is pure speculation on my part, but it's anecdotal also, that we probably have our fair share of those type of landlords in our communities. And I think it would behoove us, maybe as we're turning over all the opportunities or all the possible places we could look, is to take a look at that and maybe see how many we have in this community, and if so, would there be a benefit to even explore that as an option, for what it's worth.
Councilmember, thank you. We're taking notes on that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Just real quick on that. Steve, if you and Eric and company, if you have a quick response at all on that, like saying, hey, we have an understanding that actually exists, but that was not something that would work, why you didn't consider it. Anybody within your staff that may be able to at least give a quick answer to that?
And I don't know if in development services, if we track the amount of absentee landlords that we have in this community. No, we don't have that sort of data.
How about Eric, since he's so experienced and I really respect the experience that he has. Eric, do you have any response to Councilmember Fleming's thoughts?
I'm sorry, I was multitasking a little bit, trying to get the numbers where it probably makes sense for me to get back to you with the numbers a little later, so I can pay attention. But can you give me the highlight again, Mayor?
I'll let Councilmember Fleming do that.
Well, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Eric, one of the things I was suggesting as I was going through my notes from AWC is some cities are looking at, when they start thinking outside the box, one of the things they have come up with is this, what they refer to as a fee or a tax for absentee landlords. And they found that by creating that opportunity, they have been able to increase additional revenue sources to the cities for projects that the city may want to pursue, as well as they have found that because of that, they've now created fewer absentee landlords, which has now created opportunities for affordable housing within those communities. So they've gotten a kind of a dual benefit from having that tax available within their cities. And I think the question that was put before us before staff was, have we thought outside the box along those lines or other lines where we have other opportunities for additional sources of revenue that would help offset where we're trying to get to with this particular initiative?
Right. We haven't thought outside the box in terms of more broadly looking at fees and taxes. It's been a little while since we've done that. So that is something we could further explore. I haven't really heard a lot of alternative revenue sources that weren't necessarily had to be dedicated to and related to a particular thing. So in terms of, like, for example, and I don't profess any expertise or knowledge about this at all, but I can imagine a situation where you could attach a fee related to absentee landlords And even then, I'd like to know how that tracks, but then have to turn around and spend it in a way that provides a service that is relevant towards that. Because in general, our system of fees and taxes in this state, that if it's not, it's a fee if it's related to a particular service. A tax is generally applicable. And if it's a fee, it has to be a service that's being provided. So, for example, a business license isn't a tax, it's a fee, and we have to provide a service related to that. So in that particular situation, I'm not sure what they're spending the money on and whether it could be diverted to general fund kind of use. But we could look into that a little further if you'd like.
Yeah, you make a really good point on differentiating between fees and taxes. But if we did have a tax that addressed that particular issue of the absentee landlord, then to your point, that would free us up to be able to place those funds where we felt gave the community, i.e. the city, the greatest benefit, correct?
If it was allowable tax. And so then we get into the legislature restricting our revenue sources. And there are cities, first-class cities like Seattle, Tacoma, who might have broader authority as it relates to that than we do as a code city. Matt would probably be a better expert than I am related to that.
You're using my lines, Eric.
And I am.
What was that?
You're using my lines,
Yeah.
Eric.
Well, that's true. We are restricted because we're a code city.
Yeah.
The question, I guess, then is, as a code city, do we have that latitude or do we not have that latitude?
I'd really like to see the materials that you referenced that they're sharing at AWC.
Okay.
Because, and part of it dovetails with what Mr. Faison was talking about a second ago. Because the measures that I'm hearing about in the absentee landlord space generally, if you're looking at it on the federal measure, you may have seen in the news earlier this year, there was a measure in there where they were trying to, I think it was income tax purposes or something along those lines, trying to break up those companies that had multiple groupings, and that bill never got any traction in Congress. In Washington, when it comes to taxes, and as Mr. Faison points out, there's taxes and then there's fees. On taxes, there's a uniformity requirement that has to be applied. With fees, you have to have something in return. What's being described is almost coming off, trying to come up with some way that's structured in such a way that it doesn't come off as a penalty, which could land us in some very big hot water and not solve that problem. It might temporarily solve the transportation problem, but it would inadvertently create some additional problems along the way. While the discussion was underway, I just hopped on MRSC's website and just plugged in affordable housing just to see what they're talking about. I only got one hit on MRSC's website, and that's an article that just talks about affordable housing and the impact of short-term rentals. And that's something that I know some jurisdictions have been looking at, the proliferation of the short-term rentals that are owned by somebody who's out of town and then tying up housing needs within their communities. And then, so the narrative goes, squeezing out longtime local residents, with the out-of-town rates and trying to figure out how they're going to limit residencies and the like. Which brings me back to my opening point, which is I'd be very interested in seeing the materials that you have from AWC.
Let me gather those and I'll send those over to you.
I'd appreciate that because there may be some additional angles in there, but it's not something that's been actively discussed either in staff and certainly not in the networks in which I'm in. And it doesn't sound, I don't want to speak too much for Mr. Faison, but probably not in the circles that he's circling into. It's on the finance side.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just real quick before we move on, Mr. Faison, how much time do you need to see about those numbers?
I think I can't really pay attention to what's being spoken and run numbers, so it probably would be better, Mayor, if I could do it at a later time and get that information to you.
Okay. Councilmember McCluskey?
All right. Thank you, Mayor. On the side note with Councilmember Fleming, I'm very curious on how that concept is going to work, because if you're going to fine or fee or tax or whatever hat you're going to use, I'm thinking that there needs to be a like use for that to come back. So if it's in guise of affordable housing. It may need to come back as to how the affordable housing is going to be implemented by leveraging those fees. And so I'll be I have other questions around this concept too, so it'll be very interesting to have that come back. And what does that landscape look like in University Place? Do we have those corporate land owners that come in and buy, plots of land and build houses, and what does that look like? It seemed when I was at NLC a couple years back, we were talking about that, and it's basically really large-scale corporations in some of the larger populated cities that would go in and buy into some of the depressed areas, and then start leveraging the rent and creating higher rent that creates the people that were initially with a little more affordable rent to be homeless or looking for alternative housing, which was very problematic. And so then because of that, because of their economies of scale, then they would raise the bar on the average rent throughout the whole city or section of that city. So that was the major issue there from my understanding when I was at NLC. So anyway, I guess more to be discussed on that piece. And my other question for Mr. Faison is the sales tax that we could leverage for 10 years, what would be the overall accumulative gain per year from that?
I think, as the city manager mentioned, I think it's $375,000 a year for 10 years.
Okay.
And that's our estimate. And actually, if I may, Councilmember McCluskey, on the previous question by Councilmember Fleming, it actually is in your packet. It's the second item, the street fund, $40 a year beginning in 2030.
On what part of my question?
This
On
is
the
Councilman
absentee
Fleming's
landowners?
question.
The what?
On Councilmember Fleming's question about if we implemented the $40 in 2030
got it.
instead, it is the second bar in that in your packet where it shows the different options.
That was the mayor's question.
Okay.
So,
And then, in addition to this, which was not mentioned in the presentation, is that there was a Public Works staff member that was also put on hold, and that was indicated by Mr. Eklund that that particular position is sorely needed to keep up with the maintenance of the streets as well. So that is all in the mix, including the improvements to our cities, our city streets. So I'll end my comments there. Thank you.
Councilmember Wood? Excuse me. Councilmember Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. You might have the answer to this, and maybe it's in my pocket. The Arterial Street Fund, you had mentioned that some of the funds that are collected with regards to the license tabs, vehicle license fee, I should say, are used to, I think my takeaway from that conversation was they're used as a match in arterial street improvements. Is that right? And if so, about how much?
They're actually used prior to applying for grants to ensure that the arterial streets are maintained, that the pavement rating is maintained at or above a certain level, so that we have the ability to check that box on the grant application that our street pavement rating on that particular arterial that we're going for a grant is at a certain level.
Yeah.
So we're deploying resources to keep those arterials at or above those minimums, the threshold that the grant agency says you fall below that, you don't qualify for a grant. You're immediately not eligible.
So the vehicle license fee isn't actually used or proposed to be used for a for grant match. It is more about a base maintenance level that we see that we're able to qualify for grants
That's correct.
at 60, score 60 or better in the pavement management
that's
system.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Gotcha. All righty, good. Thank you.
And I believe it's approximately 15% goes towards arterials and 85% towards the
Residential?
neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods, thank you. Good, thank you. That's where I was headed with that. So the majority of that does go to the neighborhood street maintenance program. Some of it finds its way to arterials to keep at the base standard. Okay. Does the fee that we have, so we had it at $30 or $35, I'm going to paraphrase this, and I paraphrased it for a reason, until about 20, excuse me, I'm going to back up further. But it was about 2020, we're at $35 per vehicle license tab. It was a transportation benefit district then. There was a court case. We collected the fee. We didn't spend the money. It took 1.5 to 2 years for the court case to be done. And that is why we have money in the bank today. Mm-hmm. It's not that we weren't collecting money we didn't need or wouldn't need. It was just we held still with the expenses for a period of time until the courts decided whether we had the full authority. At least we had to find a way to refund that money if we had spent it all on the maintenance as initially intended. Is that kind of the paraphrasing and captures that issue all right?
Yes, Councilman.
Okay. I just wanted to also refresh our memories on that because it sort of sounded for a while like we were collecting money we didn't need just because we could, and that wasn't the case. I just wanted to get back to that. And so this, as we spend those reserves, as we spend that wasn't reserves, as we spend the money, we bring it down to a deficit amount, and we need to replenish it or enter maintenance, adjust our maintenance program. Okay. Does anybody have an idea what our when we set that fee, it was about 2020?
Correct.
Okay.
It was $20 until 2018, 2018, and then it was $35 until 2020, and then reduced to $10 for a period of 5 years.
And we did a maintenance program and analysis in 2020 to figure out what that fee should be, why it should be 30 or 35, whichever that number was. And has the cost of, I assume the cost of maintenance has increased somewhat substantially since then. Is it possible to get an idea of what the inflationary cost is from then till now, more or less?
I don't have that. I don't know if Deputy Director
Don't expect you to.
has that or not.
But is it something you could, and I wouldn't expect you to have it at your fingertips, and I'm not asking to triple task you with further math exercises, but it was more of a potential future data point that might be helpful for us to know is what the inflationary cost is from the last time we set this fee. If that's...
And it just so happens that I was doing similar work for figuring out a levy in my other city. And I know since 2016, it has been 37% in the Seattle area.
Okay.
And a big chunk of that is more recently because, it was 10.1% a couple years ago, 5.5% before that, 4.6% last year, and 3.8% now. So a big chunk of it is more recently.
Yeah. Well, I didn't expect you to have the numbers at your fingertips, but apparently you do, or at least in mind.
just so happens.
Okay.
Coincidence.
Well, it sounds like that's about a 20 or 22% increase since about 2020. For going off your memory there, and I imagine that's about right. It's just as we think about anything else, prices go up and our fees, how does that match? How does our real world experience match to the fee we're talking about? And there is a connection, or it seems to be to me. Okay. We might talk about that more at a future time. I think those are my questions for right now.
I can assure you that that level of increase was not in our projections.
Yeah. But, okay. Thank you. Good.
Okay. I do have Mayor Pro Tem next, but before I do, I wanted to just a little bit on Councilmember Worthington's clarification questions, and that is, during the time that the TBD fees were being set aside because of the court case, was there maintenance that was not, obviously $785,000 worth of maintenance was not being done because the monies were not being spent? Is that a way to understand this?
It wasn't that much because the TBD fee wasn't that high back then.
Okay.
So during that period of time, it was probably in the $20 range for most of the time. So it was less money set aside each year.
But the point is that I'm trying to make is if the monies were not being spent on maintenance, that means that there was maintenance during that time that was not being done?
Correct.
Due to the court case?
Yes, because we obviously the council
Right.
adopted the TBD in order to do the maintenance.
Right,
And
okay.
we didn't have those funds, so.
And then another clarification is, the word says annual deficit of, it mentions a number, 785,000. So do we really go into that deficit, or is it $785,000 of maintenance that doesn't get done? Because to me, there's maintenance that's not getting done worth the value at that amount, but we're not literally spending that much and going in the red somewhere else.
Trying to make sure I'm saying this right. So it's a little less than 785,000 in the early years and a little bit more in the later years because it inflates over time to get to the 15.7. 785 is just a straight across division. We obviously aren't doing maintenance work for money we don't have. So we could, but we have this money in the bank and we are spending it.
But what I'm saying is, just maybe I need to reword it. Let's assume there's nothing in the bank, right? We're just dependent on fees coming in. And if we don't have those fees and nothing in the bank, we don't go in the red of dollars. We just go in the red of maintenance.
Correct. So in the 4 options or 5 options that we set out, one of them was do less work, do less street maintenance work.
What I'm trying to clarify is that we're not 780 or plus or minus whatever that amount. We're not actually in the deficit of dollars. We're just in a deficit of maintenance. So we need to probably, for my council members here, we're not, that just keeps saying, man, we got that much money in the red. Where did we get those funds to do the maintenance? But literally, we haven't spent dollars somewhere that we're in the red for. We haven't borrowed and transferred money from somewhere to pay for maintenance. We just have not done maintenance. So we probably need to.
That's not true.
That's not true?
No, correct me if I'm wrong, please, Eric, but my understanding is that because we're drawing down the funds that we had accumulated, we are spending X amount of dollars per year, let's say, I don't know, 1.5 million, but half of that is only being covered by incoming funds. The other half is coming out of the reserve. So we still have an annual deficit of income of money in versus money spent. So we are doing the maintenance. And if we want to maintain that level, this is what we're looking at, if I understand correctly. Did I get that correct?
That is perfect, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you.
And the point was that you don't have to do that maintenance.
Okay, so
we don't have to go into a deficit. We can just not do that work.
So we have actually been supplementing the monies from the general funds or somewhere to pay for the maintenance we've been doing.
Well, the street fund has multiple sources of revenue.
Right.
You have the fuel tax that comes from the state. You've adopted the sewer utility tax, which goes to the street fund. So it has multiple sources of revenue. This was one of them at one point in time.
Okay. Have we deferred maintenance because there was no money that was required for that?
I think the Mayor Pro Tem said we are spending down
Okay.
the
What I heard
amount,
from
so
him
that
is
means
that
we're
we have not
deferring.
deferred maintenance, and it has been paid out of the TBD fund that was in reserve, and as well as other funds, right?
Correct.
Okay. I just have a problem with that wording of average annual deficit of whatever that amount is, because actually, the city administration has had the funds that they've expended, that has been expended for the maintenance that has been required. And what we're saying is, at this rate that we are going, it's going to take more out of the general funds or somewhere in order to maintain that if we don't do this. Correct?
We won't do it. We won't take it out of some other fund. We just won't do it. We'll stop doing
Okay.
that work.
We'll stop, the city will stop using any more funds out of somewhere else to continue that rapid growth of expenditure. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I get this right. Yes, Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you,
Oh, no,
Mr.
excuse me. I have to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. So a few things. First, I think it's important we remember what we're trying to do here. We're investing in our streets. And I bring this up because I just was traveling last weekend to my hometown in Illinois. And I will say that the roads in my hometown are embarrassing. Not just embarrassing, they're awful. I don't know what they're doing, how they're funding roads, know nothing about it, didn't ask, don't care. But I'm really proud of the roads we have here and the work we do on the roads here in UP. We have nice roads. They're easier on the vehicles, easier on traffic, and also apparently I just learned today, help us get grant funding so we can make even better roads and sidewalks and bike lanes and things like that. So what we're trying to do, I think we should, for me, the first option of doing less maintenance or doing no maintenance is not really an option for me. We do need to find a way to shore up the transportation fund or the street fund. So that gets to the next point. And with grant funding, as I've heard fellow council members mention this before, that the grant funding is often, or the question we're getting with our grant funding now is, hey, we're happy to give you a grant to help fix your streets, but oh, by the way, what are you doing with the funds the state has authorized you to leverage, and we aren't. Has anybody and this is a question now for staff or council, is anybody hearing anything more concrete or specific other than a low rumbling on the horizon saying that we're not going to get grant funding if we don't use this funding source that has been authorized to us by the state? I'm going to open that up as a question before I move on.
So I could speak a little bit to it. So we have applied for a grant with the state, and we were told specifically by one of our representatives that the chair of the committee, one of the main questions they have is, are you using the resources available to you? If you have not, then you will not be, and that's for state grants. I'm not sure, Director Eklund can probably speak better to whether or not grant applications through one of the, PSRC or one of those agencies have the same kind of requirements. But the state grants, at least they've made it known that we have to use the resources available to us.
Okay, thank you for answering that. And then getting to what Councilmember Fleming brought up about using creative sources, and I'll tell you up front, I am absolutely in favor of looking for creative sources of funding. I have a couple of concerns, though, with that, and not that we shouldn't look into it, because I do think we need to look into it, but there's a direct correlation between cars and street funds, both in state law and also in just making the case to voters and citizens. Why are you doing this? Well, because you have a car and you drive on our streets. And so having that direct correlation is very helpful when trying to ask people for more money, which none of us like to do and nobody wants to do. But it does help us make that case. If we're looking at something like the Creative Fund, like looking at absentee landlords, if that's even an option for us, which if it is, I am all for it. Let's take a look at it. That is a fund source that could be used potentially for a more direct correlation to housing issues or homeless issues or something like that. But if we take that and use it for street issues, we've now restricted that option for housing or homeless issues if we have to deal with those later. And so I am not at all opposed to looking into it. In fact, I think we should, and I'm open to creativity in any way we can. But I do like the direct correlation we can make between this. And then finally, I know we're not on a time constraint yet, sort of, but we are under, the longer we take to discuss and deliberate on whatever solution we go with, is going to cause our street fund to go in the negative sooner, even if we implement this. If we got the chart here that he gave us in our packet. If you look at it, if we were to implement this in 2026, we go through the year 2043, and 2044 we go in the red. If we implement this in 2030, we go in the red beginning in 2034, 10 years earlier. And so while we don't have an immediate pressing action to do, the sooner we take a look and address this, I think the better for our overall funds. And so with that, I would suggest, and this is just an idea I'd like to propose to council and staff, is that if we decide we don't want to act right now because we want to look into alternative sourcing or whatever funds, I propose that when we start talking budget surpluses, if we have any in this upcoming year, we start devoting those surpluses towards the street fund to buy us time to deliberate on a solution. Because right now, if I correct Eric, that the street fund is our one main fund that is still in the red, or is going to go in the red soonest. Everything else we've kind of got covered. And so if we have a surpluses, I would like to devote the surpluses towards the street fund to at least buy us a little more time to make a decision, whatever our decision ends up being. And I think that concludes my comments. Thank you.
I know we had more hands raised before we go there, is that it is 8:30. We were scheduled to this at 8:20 to end this discussion. I think that we're not going to, personally, from what I can see, this is not going to end with any direction tonight. And so, especially when we have two council members missing, and I think it's important in something like this to have everybody present. I'm suggesting we take this to another study session, and I'd like to even mention it's really hard for something this big and so sensitive and complex to do it in the allotted time in a regular council meeting. And to do it even if I gave it 45 minutes, we would never finish. So I'd like to suggest a special session that we can spend 2 whole hours to get through a lot of this and try to get to the end of this and be able to provide direction. But this can go on for a very long time, in my opinion, and I'd like to get your okay for the second study session, but it'll be a special study session. Councilmember Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with that, and you got my support for that one. I would, though, however, like to make one final comment before we leave that when you're done.
Councilmember, if we can just go around about your support of the special study session.
My sense is that we're almost ready to vote this up or down. But I may have that wrong. Councilor Fleming, Member Fleming feels differently, so I'll have to think more about that.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll support a special session.
Well, I was like Councilmember Worthington, almost ready, but I will support a special session and to include also the discussion of the Public Works FFTE as part of the mix, because that's part of the helping us maintain the streets, because he's understaffed right now, and that was part of the discussion in the budget carry forwards. We had taken back that staff position, and so that should be, in my opinion, incorporated into the vehicle license fee discussion and options to fund that account.
Okay, I think we have enough support for a special study session, and that would hopefully will be make sure that all council members are present. I just don't see how this can be given any direction where we're at right now for council to come, for city staff to come back. That being said, I would also suggest, and I'll do an email or have staff send an email to the two council members not present, but any thoughts that requires staff to do a little bit of homework and research, please email them and make sure they understand what you're looking for so they can have it ready to present at our special study session. So with that, Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make two quick comments. One is I believe, when I was listening to when you were speaking, I thought you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of ongoing funding. And what I didn't hear, or maybe I heard or didn't hear, this is not a black and white issue. We fund it and we have money. We don't fund it, we run into the red. What I was hearing in this conversation tonight was there's other things to consider. Scale back, maybe, or not scale back. Adjust the schedule of street maintenance. I agree with the comment that we've got some of the best streets around. We want to maintain those and keep those, but we may not be able to do it all at the time we want to. We may have to adjust that schedule a little bit so we can buy what we can afford. That was one of the takeaways I got from the mayor's message when he was trying to get clarification there. The other piece to that is, Eric, what I heard you say, and maybe I was reading between your lines, you just disappeared on us, was no matter what we do, no matter what we decide, if your numbers are right, whatever we do is not sustainable. The model that we're looking and considering is frankly just not sustainable over time. So are we really looking at the best model for the best interest of the city, or should we be looking at a model, and I don't know what that is yet, and that's part of this conversation that we all have, is should we be looking for a model that is sustainable over the course of time? And I don't know the answer because that's probably more dialogue for all of us to have together. The comment that we won't get grant funding if we don't vote this completely up, I'll tell you, in my years in government at the state and at the county level, and sitting on PCRC and PSRC, I don't believe that statement for 30 seconds, because we will always be a candidate for grants, and how we go about packaging that is really what determines at the end of the day, how that's all going to pan out. I think our last meeting at PCRC, where we did exceptionally well on the grant funding, is a good example of that. Over time, things do change, rules do change, and so. But I think at the end of the day, we will always be a candidate for grant funding, but it will boil down to how we package it. So. That was my final comment, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll continue this along with the other two members, and I think we'll get to the bottom of this in the next one, where we have ample time to do so. With that, our next item is number 11, wayfinding signage plan, and this is a second study for a project bidding direction.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Kevin Brisky with the Community and Economic Development Department. Here with Holly Williams, the project manager from KPG Somas that's been working on the project. Tonight, we've got a presentation to go and provide the status of where we're at and with the public outreach. And the goal tonight is to we've got it narrowed down, is to get some direction from the council to go out and get final bids. And so we'll be showing some options here with colors and so forth, and even have a few little handouts, and we'll try to go pretty quickly here.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. So we have a presentation prepared. I know we're short on time, so I'll go through it quickly so we can make sure we have a lot of time to discuss kind of where we're at in the process. At the last session, we shared the concepts with you. Since then, we've gone out to public engagement. Before that, we refined the concepts based on your input, went through public engagement, and now we're at the next step to make some decisions on a preferred concept. Real quickly, just to revisit our objectives and goals for this project: to provide informative and effective wayfinding, bolster commercial growth and development, provide an opportunity to brand business districts, and encourage exploration and discovery. So a really fun project. We saw this last time I presented, but it's good just to refresh our memory of the existing signage that's out there. 2 or 3 key points I just want to point out is the materials, the red and the stone, stacked stone on the welcome entry signs that are existing, the green on the existing park signs, and then the green on the the decorative lights that you see throughout town. Next slide. And as we go through this process of designing wayfinding signage, we as the designers have kept this in mind. All of these items here, key ones are, as I mentioned, existing signage and architecture recognized throughout University Place. Of course, adhering to zoning and signage codes. The University Place branding guide reminded us of the brand of the city, which is family-oriented, nature-friendly, welcoming, active, and high quality. And then, first and foremost, the signs need to be legible, constructible. We kept budget in mind, and durability, long-term maintenance. Where we're at in this process is the second City Council meeting that you see highlighted there. And through that, we went through a really great process with staff support and guidance, took it to the stakeholder committee twice, and as I mentioned now, went through public engagement and are ready to share our findings, our feedback from all of that collective engagement. So the public engagement process, we had, the city had a table at Duck Days, which was a very successful event to get feedback. And then we also had an online survey that was rolled out with Duck Days, the Duck Days event. That was pushed through the University Place website, social media, newsletters, and as I'm sure you guys saw, the signage boards with the link to the survey downstairs. At the Duck Days event, there was over 200 visitors at the table, 164 votes, and what we held there was in-person voting where you handed out stickers. We had the boards up of each concept, 4 total. 2 concepts with 2 variations of each, so 4 total, and people were able to put stickers on their preferred concept. And then the online survey had a series of questions, and we received 116 survey responses for that of their preferred concept, and the opportunity to provide additional feedback as well. So we'll run through the 4 concepts, and just a reminder that they're essentially 2 concepts and then 2 variations of each concept. So concept 1A is the contemporary concept with a combination of the welcome University Place red, the stacked stone, and then a bronze pole as kind of a metal detail to it. Yeah, and so we have some samples of what that could potentially look like for you guys to take a look at.
That's the bronze pole, and this is the other pole option.
So if you see here on the next, actually we'll go through the feedback that we received on this one specifically. So this one was the fourth choice out of Duck Days with the sticker voting, and second preferred for the online survey. Some of the concepts that we felt like, the comments that we felt like kind of summed up some of the feedback that we received online. The visibility and color scheme are easy to read and recognizable as University Place signage. It ties into the new UP entry signs and is vibrant yet earthy. And then in contrast to that, we also heard comments like red is often associated with law enforcement and fire departments. Not bad, but is also less visible compared to the green option that you'll see for people who are colorblind. So this is that second version, and the difference really is just the full color. Got my Vanna White over here. The silver, the warm silver full color. And the response on that one was that this was the third choice out of 4 from the sticker voting and fourth for the online survey. Again, red is more the signature color of University Place and will stand out more while driving. Easy to read, vision impaired, as visual appeal stands out and sleek. And then again, in contrast, they didn't like the red. It looks like a hospital sign. So receiving feedback for kind of both preference and not preference for the red. Concept 2, this is you'll see 2A and 2B of the more classic traditional sign concept. This is the green version of that. Okay. And so this green, it not quite reflected, I think, accurately on this screen, but you'll see the samples passed around. So this is complementary to the existing green signs and the green street poles throughout town. And then with the pop of red on the vehicular signage, and the directional signage with the red where it says University Place. And for that, so this was the first choice for the Duck Days voting, in-person voting, and also the first choice for online survey voting. And some of the comments that received in response to this one was that the red is too abrasive, like a stop sign. The green is more natural looking and reflects our area better. The color green reflects the personality of University Place and is more friendly, not aggressive. And then in contrast to that, the green is nice, but will likely get lost in the buzz of the city. These signs should stand out in contrast with the background. And then, so this one is the red version of that. So that's the difference of these two signs, is the green versus the red, reflecting the stacked stone of the existing signage. You want to, and the bronze, and then if you want to go. So this was the second choice with the in-person sticker voting, and third in the online survey. Similar comments to what we've heard for both the red versus the green here. And for time's sake, we'll kind of scoot through more. So this is looking at the online survey results of all 4 and the Duck Days to the right, the Duck Days voting tally. And you'll see that in person with the sticker approach, the 2A and 2B were kind of the clear choice. If you look at the online survey results with the 4 across, we found it kind of interesting that of the 3 red options, we think that maybe the voting of the red got split between those 3, where the concept 2A was the preferred with the green, but then also a lot of people chose that was their 4th option too. So kind of a range of response. I will say all positive. Everybody was really excited about all the options, and just excited about the project. We can probably move past this. These are some more just kind of general comments about the colors and the concepts. But this is looking at all 4 options compared together, and we thought that, just like I said, I'm kind of moving through quickly to make sure that we have a lot of time to discuss this, and maybe open it up to council to get your thoughts regarding the input that we received. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Kevin?
No, just on this slide, you have the 1A and 1B, which is the main difference there is just the pole color, either the bronze pole or the kind of more champagne-ish colored pole, and then or the concept 2A and 2B, which is the same exact style of sign except for you have either the green or the red. So just questions on those from the council or direction from the council on which style they like and color they like between the kind of concept 1 or concept 2.
Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kevin, just from either one of your experiences, when you look at those pole colors, the bronze or the champagne, the thing that I always keep in the back of my mind when we're putting up anything public is the risk of tagging. And I was thinking on that darker color, it's a less likelihood of tagging versus the lighter color, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'll say in my experience, I haven't really seen anything, more so based on the color. We would advise that all of this have a graffiti treatment on it. And then these are all paints, even the bronze, the metallic paints, they're actually paint. So that can be, if you get to the point where the graffiti can't be washed off anymore, it can be touched up too. So they're all, as much as they can be, kind of graffiti treated.
Yeah, I love the direction we're going, and I love the work that's gone into this. I always just cringe when I think about someone coming along with a can of spray paint and trying to deface it.
I would concur as a designer. Yeah, it's always hard to see, but something we have to consider and think about, prepare for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor Figueroa. So cost isn't the most important factor, but cost is a factor. Is there a significant difference between one and I mean significance? Pennies I'm not that concerned about, but if there is dollars involved, it might be helpful to know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the concept 2 is slightly more expensive, not a lot.
Okay.
And we did get a variety of estimates that we can't be held to until we go out to bid, but a couple thousand more
Per unit or per project?
per sign.
Per sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it depends on which sign type we're talking about too, but not a huge difference, but the concept 2 is slightly more.
It too has a little more detail to it if you look at it, so there is a slightly more cost for the, especially the business district signs.
Okay.
In that 2,000-ish.
And so some of that cost is that detail. And is the stack stone, or what was that the proper name?
Yes.
Does that, anyhow, that's the same between all, it looks like?
Yeah, we were looking at a similar material that was used on the existing signage.
All right, and I guess where I have the mic, red is a color that there is just a whole bunch of different varieties and none quite the same. So I don't know how many colors of red we have, but in this room, 3 or 4, and that's before the samples. So now we have 5 or 6 different reds. I don't know what to do about that, but anyhow.
Yeah, actually, we passed around just a handful of samples that we received. That is a very good point, and we actually asked for some just initial examples that are a variety of reds, and when we get into, this next step of implementation, we would work with Kevin and staff to look at the very specific red that you want to choose, and we take it outside and look at it as far as sunlight and day, night, all of that to make sure that you kind of hit the right red outdoors, and then also what's complementary with existing.
So I should think about this as a representation of red, but not the red.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That helps. All right. Thank you.
Before I move on, I'd like to ask a few of my own, and that is the red. Why wouldn't we already have used a red? Why wouldn't it be the same red? Why
It
would
could
we use
be.
it?
Yeah. And if that's the preference, if everybody agrees that they like that red that's out there, we can color match
My
that.
suggestion is to keep the flow of what people have seen, and it's the color that we've accepted and people are used to, and we're used to start that raised the question is why have different colors of red all over the place? We should be uniform. That's my point to my colleagues here.
The one thing that I'll note to that we just want to be really mindful of when we're picking final colors is that there's a high contrast, so that on the letters, especially particularly the directional signage, we just want to make sure that the red or the green, whatever color it is dark enough in contrast to the white lettering that you can actually read the white lettering really well. So that's just something we'll want to dial in.
So we have the city red, adopted red, that's on our city entrance signs. So that would be the red that we would use. However, there's certain tints that are just a little bit, and I'm not a color expert, I'll defer to Holly, but you're talking about just kind of a little bit of a slightly different tint. Most people, so it has that contrast with the
It wouldn't be
white
a
lettering.
big contrast. Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't notice the difference.
The other one is on the green, top right, concept 2A. I like that green and all that, but again, when it says University Place on the bottom in brown and our flower on top is brown, why couldn't that be the color red that we use, and with the green in the middle? I mean, that's our color. I don't like that. I'm talking to my peers here, but I don't necessarily like that because it changes what we are used to. I'm used to that color with our flower and our name. That's what I'm used to, and I think that would not be my preference. But I like the green. I think that really, is nice, and it contrasts well with the red, like on the right-hand side with those poles. But I'm wondering why you have University Place in red on top, not brown, but you have it brown on the bottom and the flower. So I would just say, why not red there? Was there any thought why you didn't?
We went through a lot of iterations testing that, and we probably did try that. I will say that the one thing that we struggled with to just make sure that it looked right is the combination of the red and the green a lot of times looked very Christmassy, and so we were trying to avoid that connotation year-round. It's great, around the holiday season, but so I think that's why we don't there. I'm pretty sure we tested that. I will point out that the red, so on the green option 2A, the red on the directional signage that says University Place or in white, that is slightly darker than the red that's been used on the other signage for that reason, that the two colors didn't complement each other that well.
My last comment is, and we didn't get into it, but locations, but certainly because many of our areas, and as people approach going east to west, the sun can be quite intense, and I don't know how well that reflects in some of this material on the backside where it's just you can't really see it. So is that going to be a problem?
That's definitely something that we want to test, and that goes back to just really dialing in the colors and the contrast. And when these signs go out to bid, we'll ask the fabricator to provide samples of that, and then again we'll take it outside and make sure that in all different lighting that it it doesn't have that glare or it doesn't not read the way that we want it to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm done. Councilmember McCluskey?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Well, I like to have these signs to be branding and to get as close to our roadie color red that are on our vehicles, so that when people see the red, they'll know it's city. And the concept 2B, because the citizens are gravitated towards that, and also you mentioned that on the online survey, that the results may have been split between the reds, so that a red may not rate as high on that.
Yeah.
So I'll circle back to the deck days, and when you're looking at the graph, then you have the standalone sign and then you have the reader board sign. I don't think we're doing a reader board here, are we? No, okay. But if we were, I would like that to be red, not brown. The brown recedes, and I like that to stand out. The other piece to that is that I liked how it has the roadie on top, and also the delineation of the center that it's representing in the way. And I'm not colorblind, but I know Mayor Pro Tem is. So when I look at the color red, I'm thinking that they can still read it and it'll still pop. And so I like to be corrected on that as well. And also with the color green, I know people are colorblind towards green as well. But my preference is the stonework, branding of that's and also the color red going through it. And I also liked the concept 2B because it duplicates the roadie. Because when people see the roadie, they should automatically think of University Place as a branding option. So thank you for all the hard work and the design concepts here. Appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
Mayor Pro Tem Wood?
All right, so we've got about 40 seconds left before we adjourn, so I will keep my comment very brief.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting to 9:15.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, well, I'll be a little longer than 40 seconds, but not much. My comment is I like the 2A and 2B concepts overall better. Again, the red and green makes very little difference to me. So, but what makes the difference to me is both the classic. It's got a more classic look, but also it does incorporate additional color scheme with the. I guess it's a beige in the 2B option, and then whatever that light off-white is in the other one, and that's more eye-catching for somebody like me who doesn't see red and green as well. So it's something that will attract my eye, and then allow me to see the rest of the sign.
Okay.
So. That's all I really wanted to say about those, and those are kind of my two preferred options out of all of them. Thank you.
Councilmember Worthington?
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things quickly. One is with regards to the green. I do have concerns about the green, and the concern is that this is a lovely community full of great evergreen trees, and particularly around our parks and in our parks. And frankly, I get concerned that sign is going to get, with a background of green and green on the sign almost becomes disappeared. I know in my yard I have lots of trees, lots of moss, lots of rhodies, lots of green, and it's great, and it's sort of like our parks, and that's a wonderful spot. But if I wanted to get a sign up, I would look for something that had a higher level of contrast. I think the red does that from my perspective. But it's always a trade-off. So the other thing is the city logo, and this could be more about how this graphic is, the capabilities of the resolution of the graphic to be produced. But the logo isn't crisp enough to really make out what it is, in my view, and it reads as more of a blob than it does a rhodey blossom. And then I also have spent 12 years looking at a very similar logo, thinking it's another city that's 6 miles away. So that's, yeah. The City of Fife's logo was created back in the previous century and looks an awful lot like UP's. So, yeah. So anyhow, for that reason, I personally prefer items 1 versus item 2, and it's how that top piece is treated. No, having given you total confusion, that's just my opinions, and I'm happy with any of these. So, thank you.
Okay, so we heard from one council member about preferences. You're trying to hear preference and then direction, correct? So I'm going to go with preference and then direction. And for me, I think that we should. I think any of them that you as an expert and staff as an expert that you've worked this before give it much more thought than I have. And I believe that, what you picked will serve the purposes that our citizens would like and everything else. But if you ask a novice at this, I would choose the 1A as well. And as far as direction, I think we need to move forward. We've kicked this around long enough, and I prefer to just provide direction to staff to move forward with the bidding process. So we'll go to my left and all the way to the right, and Councilmember Lukusky,
So my
preference and direction without
Okay.
elaboration.
My preference is 2B. It got almost a lot of votes from our public, and then with my comments that I had made prior to this would be except I don't like the reader board color sign and also the standalone sign here, the one in beige on this one. We're not doing that, right?
No,
Right,
that's
right.
the
Okay.
kiosk sign.
The kiosk, thank you. I was trying to figure out that word, right. So in lieu of that on this graphic, I'll go with concept 2B. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I like 2A and 2B, again, for the reasons stated before. It has additional colors that can draw the colorblind eye. None of these options are bad. They're all, I think, quite attractive in their own way. I would ask that if we go with a 1A or 1B option, that there be something on there that's not just red or green or whatever those colors are, but there's something on there that's more, that again, a beige or something like that that'll help draw the eye. That would be my preference. And as far as direction, I disagree with the mayor. I think we should talk about this a half dozen more times before we can discuss it. I agree with the mayor. Let's move this along.
Was I speaking a different language here? Councilmember,
Let's make a special
I'll go to you. Just make sure
I said my
capture. You're fine? Okay. Councilmember Fleming.
Well, I guess this is the big moment. I'm the tiebreaker here. Whoa. I want to get this thing wrapped up because I don't want it to exceed how long it took. In other words, I don't want us to set a new record for the state. WSDOT already has that for the I-5 Highway 16 interchange of 22 years, and I think we're hot on their heels if we don't make a decision on this one. So I'm ready to move this forward, first and foremost. But, I was listening to the dialogue, and everyone made some really good, compelling arguments why they like what they like. But branding is a big deal, and I think Councilmember McCluskey pointed that out. And, and to the other comments, our branding is the rhododendron. I was going to say the daffodil, but that's not it.
Wrong
And it is the red. And as I was processing this and I was looking at your diagram with the background trees, I also agree that if we went with the green, we're trying to help people find their way around town. If you go with the green, it's going to get lost. No ifs, ands, or buts. We got a lot of green trees. We're one of the green cities in the state, and so it would be lost. I love the work you did. I really do, and I love what you came back with. But I'll tell you, if I were to pick one of these right now tonight, it would be the 1A. I would go with the 1A because it stands out. It helps us continue the branding. It brings our logo out there. It really meets all the needs and requirements that we set out with originally. You've checked the box really on each one of those, and so for that reason, I think that 1A is the way to go.
Yeah, but you get more of the logo on the one in the lower right, 2B. See the logo? It's more on
Yeah,
all the signs.
in 2B, the logo's brown, and that's not our logo.
No, that was red.
No,
It's brown.
Brown? Okay.
it's brown.
I'm colorblind,
It
too.
can be red.
Yeah.
Can it be red?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not the option on the table, so don't confuse it.
You'll get your logo on all the signs
Yeah.
that way,
So we got it.
which is your point.
Okay, so everybody's given the direction. The only thing I request, obviously you have direction, but Kevin and I think you're, Holly, we have 2 council members missing. Instead of waiting for 101s or something like that, can you contact them, brief them on, no?
You can brief them, but in terms of a decision,
No, not a decision, no. It's just to brief them and to comment on the preference and comment on the signage itself, and that'll help you get a full 7 council to see what the taste is and things like that. I think you've heard enough from us to go with that, but I think it's appropriate to at least touch base with those 2. They're very committed to this community, and I think they would be sad if they didn't give you their input. Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. With that, the study session is now adjourned.
Tough group.
Okay, we did it.